All right, welcome. Happy Friday to you. Okay, so we'll start with the intention. So why are we here? So I will propose that the reason why we're here is freedom. And hopefully you agree. But that word freedom can be, we can just kind of gloss over that and miss what is really available and what's being pointed to. So let's just take a moment to get clear on it. So this freedom that we're interested in, just take a look right now at your own experience. Just notice you want freedom. Maybe you use a different word, but just play along and see how freedom is what you really want. So just play along and be willing to use that word for a moment and notice, you just look at your own experience. You want freedom and notice what that is. What is that you're seeking for? So you want freedom. And if you look, most likely what you'll find is that there's if you're looking with the mind, then, or if you're looking to the mind, then you're either going to one of two possibilities. One is that you'll come up with, yes, I want freedom, and I want freedom from something. So then we'll call that reactive freedom. Or the other possibility is, if you're looking to the mind, you'll just draw a blank. Yeah, I guess I want freedom. I don't really know. It's just sort of a blank. So we're accustomed to looking to the mind because the mind is all about objectivity. It's looking for something to grasp. So it gives us a false sense that we have something, that there's something graspable and that we've grasped it. And so it's interested in objectifying everything. That's the only way that the mind can make sense of it. So if it can grasp it, it's going to grasp it, and it's going to, the freedom that it can grasp is a reactive freedom. It's a freedom from something that it's already determined it doesn't want. So in that case, you say, well, yes, I want freedom. I want freedom from this pain. I want freedom from this suffering. I want freedom from this depression. I want freedom from this misery. I want freedom from this anxiety. I want freedom from this sadness. I want freedom from this anger. I want freedom from this irritability, freedom from, on and on and on. Long list of things it wants freedom from. Now, if you have inquired adequately, or to at least to some extent, you'll start to see that there's a transparency to all of that, that you can't really believe it, because you'll start to realize, well, okay, so if I got that, you just imagine, if I got that, then what? See, this is the thing that we don't usually do. We just are invested in this reactive pursuit, whatever we call it, whether we say we want freedom, or we want liberation, or we want happiness, or we want peace, or we want joy, or we want bliss, or whatever word we want to put in there. We want okayness, or whatever. Whatever word we put in there, it's reactive, because we only know it relative to something else, in reaction to what we don't want. So we want happiness because we say, well, that will be the antidote to the unhappiness that I don't want. I want rid of the unhappiness. So happiness will be the antidote to that. I want peace because that's the antidote to the pain, or the misery, or the suffering, or the torture, or the obsessiveness, or whatever it is that I'm experiencing that I don't want. On and on. So once you've started to inquire, which I'm inviting you to do directly right now, so you're looking for yourself right now, see how everything that you think you want, whatever word you put there, however you spin it, whatever it is, if it's something that you can grasp in the mind, it's a reaction to something that you don't want, that you perceive as presently happening, or that you perceive, even if you say, well, I'm not sure that it's presently happening, but it seemed to be happening just a moment ago, and I'm afraid it's going to happen again in a second. Because actually the truth is, if you really look right now, it's not happening right now, whatever it is. So we're differentiating here between reactive, non-reactive. So in the mind, if we can grasp it, it's reactive. Just see that that's so. You see that anything you can assign meaning to, or significance to, or you can somehow make sense of, that's a reaction, because it's in reaction to what you already think you know that you don't want. Now, if you inquire a little bit deeper, which many of you have, then you start to see, and just look right now, see, okay, if I got this relative thing, so I perceive that I'm unhappy, I want happiness as the antidote to that, so that's relative. If I got that happiness, okay, imagine that now. Imagine that you've got it. Imagine, and really that just means you've got rid of the unhappiness. Okay, so you've got rid of the unhappiness, and you've got what you now call happiness. Just look, imagine that. This is the power of imagination. And that's all that any of this is anyway. So all of what we're so concerned with is entirely imagination, but we can make, that's unconscious imagination. We can consciously use imagination to investigate. So look to see if I have that. Now, are you really satisfied? Of course not. Because it was just reactive, and it's all relative. It's not anything that is true and real. It's all just more smoke and mirrors. Because we weren't really planning. We weren't really honest. We weren't looking sincerely. Instead, we were just reacting. It was just this knee-jerk reaction. I'm in so much pain. I've got to get rid of it now. Whatever it's going to take to get rid of it. I just want freedom. Okay, now you've got it. But now you're not happy. Now you're not satisfied. It's not complete, because it was just a reaction. So that reaction will beget another reaction and another reaction. Why? Well, if you look carefully, it becomes quite obvious, because all you're doing is cultivating reactivity. So you're just developing, really honing this skill of reactivity. So the more you react, the more skilled you are at reacting, the more you're going to react. It's like, all you have is a hammer, all the world looks like nails, kind of thing. So you have developed this skill of reactivity. You're going to have developed this skill. So that's what that will be your go-to. That will be the lens through which you experience everything. So hopefully you can see that in your direct experience. Hopefully you can follow along and recognize that. And hopefully you can recognize, we're just with the intention still. Hopefully you can recognize that that's not really your intention. That's not really why you're here, because that would be a waste of time. I mean, if that's the case, just watch a movie or, whatever, something. Read the paper, to watch something on YouTube, whatever people do. I don't know, do something. You could do anything and it would satisfy that, because it would just be some other distraction that would fill in the space for a little while, so that then you don't have to, you're distracted. You're not focused on this problem for a little while, but then when you're not distracted, you come right back to it. So that is not really what you want. Hopefully you can see that. Now let's look at this other possibility. So what I'm saying here is that, if you'll recall, that if you're looking to the mind, either you're going to see, I want something that's reactive, transitory, or you're going to, in the mind, just sort of draw a blank and say, I don't know what that is. Well, that's more honest. That's better. Because then you're recognizing the limitation of the mind. What you're recognizing is that what you want is beyond the mind. So this is kind of a big deal if you recognize that. If you recognize just how much of your energy and time and focus is on the mind, and then you see that what you really want is beyond the mind. It's not something that can be had by the mind. When the mind is tasked with describing it or finding it or grasping it, it just draws a blank. It can't do it. We can use a word, freedom, that points to something, but it points to something beyond the mind. So if we're looking to the mind, all we get is a blank. What is that? The mind doesn't know. It doesn't have any reference for that, because all the mind can do is refer to what's already known, and it can react to that. So it poses that there's this thing called freedom, but that thing called freedom is just a reaction to what it already thinks it knows, which is misery. But when we get more honest and we see, okay, that thing that I'm calling freedom, that's not really what I want. That's just more of the same. It's just another distraction, another carrot being dangled out in front to keep me going, so that I can, for a little while longer, postpone facing the reality that I'm going to die. Worse than that, I've never lived. I don't even know what it is to be alive, because all I've done is reacted. Just reaction after reaction after reaction after reaction. We just want to avoid that. But then you get very honest and look carefully, and you see what I'm pointing to in your own experience. I really can't emphasize that enough. This is an active process that you have to actively participate in. So it's not about just hoping that something's just going to happen. You have to look, you have to see You have to be willing to run the full course of, in your imagination, of what the course that you're on, so that you can see that it's a dead end and it will never deliver what you really want. Once you recognize that, then you come to the limitation of the mind and you realize what you really want, what we're using this word freedom or peace or happiness or okayness or whatever word you want to use. We're using that to point to something that's beyond the mind. It cannot be had by the mind. It's not graspable by the mind. But we know that it's real. How do we know that it's real? Don't you know it's real? Don't you know that it's not just, how could it be? Okay, think about this. How could it be that you could even have a longing for this freedom unless it is pre-existing? It's not created. It's not something that you create. It's something that pre-exists, and you somehow have this innate recognition, and that's the longing is born out of that. The longing is really just a pointing to that which is pre-existing. Because if it didn't exist, it couldn't even enter we couldn't even be speaking right now. You would just stop listening. You would just exit the meeting, because why would you sit here listening to something that doesn't even register at all? So it's pointing to something that you recognize, but you can't grasp it with the mind. There's something in you when I say that word freedom. There's something that's like a breath of fresh air. And there's a yes to it. There has to be. That's why you're here. So now, hopefully, we're getting clear on what's the intention. The intention is to realize that, not to think about it, not to hope for it, not to imagine it, not to pine for it, not to postpone it until tomorrow or 5 minutes from now, not to create more conditions for it. Our intention is to realize it. It's to realize that freedom that's beyond the mind, that is that which we are longing for most deeply, so deeply that nothing else can satisfy. I mean, really nothing else. You just have to look and see that that's the case. Look to see that all the things that you think you want, they're all, just look right now. Okay. So, and how do you do that? You just have to use your imagination. Okay. So imagine you had a list of things of complaints, things that you are unhappy about, and things that you think that if those were fixed, if you had the correct remedy and you got an idea of what the remedy is, in some vague sense at least. So imagine that you've attained that. So now you have all of those things. Imagine you've got all of them. You've got the money and the physical health, your sleep is great every night, and your relationships are all easy peasy and just so happy, and you have no anxiety, and on and on and on, just everything is great. I mean, really, imagine it's all wonderful. It's like heavenly. And then just really imagine that and notice that there's something that there's still a dissatisfaction. There's still this, yeah, and then what? I mean, it won't do it for you to after after it's all kind of falls flat. You have imagine you can eat chocolate cake every day, or ice cream, or whatever your thing is, whatever your favorite thing is, and you can just eat that and you feel great, and you don't, your body is fit and perfectly healthy always, and you're just having these pleasures, these sensual pleasures constantly. Everything is beautiful visually, tactilely. It's all very sensually pleasing. You're having these bodily sensations that are orgasmic all the time. You're you know like heavenly sounds and music constantly, on and on and on. And this is like the peak attainment. And just notice there's still this dissatisfaction. Even if you attain all of that, you really have to see that no matter what I attain reactively, thinking that that's going to fix the problem, in reality, even at the very peak, even if that was sustained forever, this dissatisfaction would be there. Yeah. And then what? Just constantly looking for more. So again, it points to something that's inconceivable, something beyond the mind, because you rack the brain and you try and find, well, okay, and then what? And then what? And then what? What's going to be the greater attainment beyond that? And you reach the limit at which there's no greater attainment. So sounds like bad news, but it's really good news, because what it means is that we've got a very level playing field. It means that your life right now, exactly as it is, all of the conditions exactly as they are perfect. Nothing, you don't need any other conditions. You don't need to improve anything, to get rid of anything, to attain anything. You don't need to fix anything. You don't need to have any particular experiences. You don't need to anything. Doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, how healthy you are, how unhealthy you are, how intelligent you are, how unintelligent you are, how rich you are, how poor you are. None of it matters. Nothing, none of it. Not a single one. Doesn't matter how good you are, how evil you are. Doesn't matter any of it, which is shocking, because we've been told so many times in so many different ways that the way to attain what we want is progressive, and we have to fix ourselves and improve ourselves and be good. It's always important, right? You have to apply yourself, you have to be intelligent, you have to get yourself in shape, you've got to be a good, decent, moral person. You've got to live in accordance with whatever rules you think are the rules, and then you'll be good enough, and then you'll get the reward. But here, what we're seeing, hopefully, and you look in your own experience and you see, even if I'm supremely good and I do get rewarded, I will still not be content. That discontent will still be there. It will never be enough. It's just the nature of this phenomenal reality. It's the nature of experience, is that it comes and it goes. It's transient. So there's nothing for us to grasp. So we're just constantly having to chase And once we achieve a peak, well, we say, now I need a higher peak. And, the people who are way down here, they look up to you on this very high peak and they say, if only I was at that peak. But you're looking at the higher peak and you say, if only I was up there. Meanwhile, those who are up there, they're saying, where's the even higher peak? How do I be good enough? How do I be smart enough? How do I be pure enough? That's another good one. Pure enough. But if you really see, and it's not hard, this isn't like you don't have, again, you don't need great intelligence, you don't need purity, you don't need anything in order to see this. It's just plainly obvious. You just look to your own experience. Everybody here has had enough experience. Maybe children haven't had enough experience to recognize this, but certainly any adult can recognize, if you just look sincerely, I've had enough experience to show me that there's a pattern here. It's just a pattern of chasing after things. It's all reactive. It's based on, I don't like this, so I want that instead. And then I get that, and I don't like this, I want that instead. And we just keep thinking, if only I got that. But that never is enough. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying you should reject any achievement or attainment, or reject the world, or reject your body, or reject your feelings, or any of that. I'm not saying that at all. Take good care of yourself. This is a really precious opportunity. So take good care. And don't postpone what you're really longing for because you keep setting up more conditions for it. So now, how do we deal with this? So if you see what I'm pointing to in your own experience, if you can recognize what I really want is freedom that's beyond the mind. It's something that when I look to the mind for it, I can't find it. I just draw a blank, because it's not known. It's not in reaction to what's known. It's not trying to attain some higher peak. It's not trying to get anywhere. It's finally just recognizing truthfully, everything that I've done up to this point has been disappointing. Not because it's inherently bad, because it's not necessarily inherently bad. We have these transient pleasures. That's fine. It's wonderful. You see the rainbow, you see the sunrise or the sunset, you see the ocean, you see the baby, all of these experiences, they're all these transitory pleasures, and they're very wonderful, and we shouldn't reject them. But when we grasp at them and think, if only I can get that and hold on to it, or if I can heighten it, increase it, augment it, sustain it, that will be the thing that I really want. That's the mistake. Then you see that it will never work. It will never satisfy. So we reach the limit of the mind. So what we're called to is to something that's beyond the mind. Well, what could that be? So here's a clue. If you can think it, that's not beyond the mind. If you can imagine it, it's not beyond the mind. Hopefully that's clear, because that's what when we talk about the mind, I mean, there's no thing called the mind, but the mind is just, we use that word mind to point to this phenomenon of the appearance and disappearance of phenomena, so thoughts, sensations, images. So just look now in your own experience and see what, if you're looking, you're just, can you answer this? Can you find the answer? Is it possible? So, look for yourself now and see, what can you discover that's not a thought, that's not an image, it's not something that you can label, something that you can know something about. Because if it's something you can label or know something about, or that's a reference to something that you have already experienced or that you could imagine experiencing, that's all the mind, that's all activity in the mind. So what is it? Is there anything that's not mind? So perhaps what you notice is that there is we have to use words here. Obviously, the word is not it. The word is just pointing. We could say it's like a silence or a stillness that is untouched by any of the activity. So even if thoughts come and go, or sensations come or go, or images come and go, whatever, just notice that there's a unaffected, untouched, what we can't say. Just notice that which is silent, still, continuous. So then, if you have this, you can recognize that, then of course doubts are likely to come. And what are the doubts? The doubts are more mind activity. So then just see there's a choice there. So the doubt comes, and out of habit, most likely you give attention to the doubt. So What are those doubts? Doubts can be varied. Could be things, one could say there are different categories of doubts. There are doubts. I'm not going to try to categorize them, but we'll just give some examples. Okay, so it could be like, well, I'm not sure I understand. Or, well, I'm not, this is a good one. But I'm not having the right experience yet. I don't feel it yet. I don't feel free yet. I don't feel enlightened. Or, yeah, but I'm not pure enough. I'm not good enough. I'm still anxious, worried, fearful, uncomfortable. Or I'm not certain, don't have absolute certainty. Or, yeah, but I don't know if I can sustain it. I don't seem to be able to sustain it. Whatever the doubts are, just notice where your attention goes. So remember what I said, that the true freedom, not reactive freedom, but what the truth of freedom is pointing to, this beyond mind, beyond concept, beyond even perception, that it's unconditional. So there's no condition whatsoever. There's nothing. You don't need to have a particular feeling. You don't have to be a good person. Your behavior doesn't have to conform to any rules. You don't have to be free of desire. You don't have to anything. There are no conditions. And that it's pre-existing, meaning, or we could say eternal, or timeless. So it doesn't come and go. It's not something that wasn't, and then all of a sudden it's generated because you did the right thing. It's something that's already the case. It's always been the case. So it's not a particular experience. Oh, so another doubt. Good. This is a good one. Yeah, but what good does that do me? I don't, then it's just a tantrum. Oh, but I don't, it's only good if I get to feel good. You see, you don't even know what feeling good is. Isn't that true? You don't really know what feeling good is. You just have some idea about it. But every experience that you've ever had was lacking in some way. It was never it. It was never it. Because even if you say, oh, but I did have that one experience, or I did have it, had it 10 times. No, but it came and it went. So it wasn't ultimately satisfying. You don't know what it is. You don't know what it feels like to feel genuinely, truthfully good. So all of these objections, they're just more postponement, waiting for the right conditions, waiting for some thing that will never happen. Never, ever, ever. It's like trying to find the end of the rainbow, or trying to get the water from the mirage. You'll never get there. You can't. No matter how hard you try, how fast you run, how creative you get, you'll never be able to accomplish it. So you cannot ever arrive at those right conditions, because the nature of the conditions is just that they are conditions. That's it. The specifics are irrelevant. It's just the nature of what's conditional is that it's conditional. And what you really want is something that's not conditional, and that's available here. And it's just a choice. So you just see right now, whatever doubts arise, just either you give your attention to that or you don't. And even that makes it sound more conditional than it is, because it ultimately doesn't matter where your attention goes. That's just another false condition. But as a training wheels, it's a useful pointer. Just see this tendency for the attention to go to whatever doubts arise, and then it's just churning. Oh yeah, that must be true. Well, I guess I haven't discovered it yet. I'll just keep on searching, keep on seeking, keep on striving, keep on keeping on. But the alternative is just right now, it's so simple, just give it a rest. Just completely give it a rest. And as you give it a rest, you can maybe even see that this, the one who is supposed to be good enough and pure enough and understand enough and knowledgeable enough and smart enough and successful enough and all that to deserve and achieve freedom is only, it is nothing other than conditions. Just see that if that doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what will. Just see that this one who is supposed to get it right, and the one who's supposed to achieve and arrive at this so-called freedom, that it is entirely 100% nothing other than conditions. That's all it is. It's just these conditions. It's just, I'm not there yet. Got to be smart enough, got to be good enough, got to be pure enough, got to be rid of these things. Got to only have these thoughts, only have these feelings, only have these experiences, never have pain, never be angry, never be frustrated, never have doubt, never have any kind of fluctuation. That's all that it is. So clearly that will never succeed, because it is only conditions. That which is conditions can never achieve what is unconditional. But you are already that which is unconditional. That's the big joke. Just see that all that's happening is just, there's this, and it's not even happening. So don't get hung up on this, but it's as if it's happening. It's like you're dreaming that it's happening. You're dreaming that there's this contraction happening, this contraction into these conditions, and that you need to undo that. You need to get rid of the conditions. You need to unburden yourself. You need to throw it all off. But since it's just never going to happen, so see instead that never was. You've always remained unblemished. There's no one else who can give you that, because you are that. nobody can reward you. There's nobody who's outside of you who's going to be able to say, ah, you did it. Congratulations. Now I'll grant you the freedom. You are the freedom. You're only the only one who can grant yourself that. And it's not a granting, it's just an acknowledgement. It's a recognition that I am that. I am that freedom. No matter what. No matter what. No conditions for this. And if the doubts come, just notice when you entertain those doubts, all you're doing is wrongly imagining that that those doubts pertain to you. But see, the doubts are just the doubts. They don't pertain to anyone. When we entertain them, we imagine this false entity to whom these doubts apply. And we say, I am that. Oh no, now I have to fix all of these things. I have to satisfy all of these conditions that I've just imagined before I can be free. Just see that's the game that's happening. And notice that you are this freedom which is pre-existing, prior to, untouched by any of that. And you'll notice how there's really no words that can be applied to this. It's just yeah, no words that can be applied. I mean, in truth. It's just a matter of recognizing this habit of fixating on the mind. And then even that doesn't have to be undone. It's maybe helpful, maybe, but maybe not also, only because then, it just creates another condition that's false. So if it's helpful, if it's helpful, then it's helpful. But it's not, let's just say it could be helpful, but it's not necessary. So if it's helpful, great, but don't get hung up on it. It's not like an achievement. So we can use techniques to still the mind. I mean, oh my goodness, there's so many yogic techniques for stilling the mind, and those yogis are very good at coming up with these things, so many things. But you see there too, well, that's not good enough. That's that technique, that's a good technique, but I've got a better technique because your technique only stops the mind for 5 minutes. Mine stops the mind for half an hour. Or your technique only stops the mind 99%. Mine stops at 100%. Or your technique requires 10 years of training before it will work. Mine, I can tap the person on the forehead and and it works for them. I mean, constant one-upmanship, who's got the best technique, but who cares? Because if you're still hung up on whether the mind has been silenced or not, there's still this false notion that there is a mind. Whereas the transparency of what's called mind is something that you can recognize like that. It's not hard at all. It's just as I said, it doesn't require any great intelligence. It doesn't require great training. All it requires is sincerity. Helps if you've had enough. Also, if you've just had enough, you can't take any more. That's also helpful. Just say, I can't take any more pain, can't take any more suffering, can't take any more misery, can't take any more seeking, can't take any more strain. That's helpful because it's that easy. It's the easiest thing. It's so easy because nothing can contradict it. And it's not something that's created. It's not generated. It doesn't come into being. It's already the case. It's just a recognition. It's just what is already the case. It's prior to, independent of anything that appears, anything that comes and goes, any conditions. And you see, again, all the doubts. So the doubts surface, and all those doubts just pertain. You see, you imagine with every one of these doubts that there's someone that the doubt applies to, and you say, I'm that someone. I'm that someone who the doubt applies to, but it's just in your imagination. So just recognize that these doubts, notice where the doubt arises from. So just look in your own direct experience right now. Just see if you can observe, where does the doubt come from? And then see if you can observe where the doubt goes to, so obviously the doubt appears and disappears. Watch it appear and disappear and see what it's appearing and disappearing in or from, or what its origin and destination is. And hopefully you see, it's not hard. I mean, in the mind, it's impossible because the mind's looking for where is that? What is that? But just without consulting the mind for the answer, just notice in direct experience. It's very obvious. It's not hard. The doubt, like all phenomenon, they appear in what we can't say. We can't give it like we can use a word. We can say stillness, silence, awareness, emptiness. But it's beyond concept. It's appearing from what we could say nothing. And then it returns to that. And what is that nothing? Is it at a distance? Is it a nothing that's over there? Obviously not. It's the doubts and all phenomena appear from what I'm using the word nothing. Don't get hung up on the word, but from this nothing or space or emptiness or fullness or awareness or consciousness or whatever we want to say, that's right here, that I am. And then it returns to that. So how could this doubt, you watch the doubt appears. Prior to the doubt, you just notice there's just stillness. And then the doubt appears, and whatever it is, it seems to refer to someone who is, you say me, but it's someone with a, body and story, past, future, all of that. It seems to refer to that one. But where is that one? You say, well, I am that one. Yes, but but where is that one? That's part of the same concept. Prior to the arising of that doubt, that concept, where was it? It wasn't there. It appears with the concept and then disappears with that concept. So the doubt holds that part and parcel is that concept, and then as the doubt disappears, it also, that concept of this one who the doubt applies to also vanishes. So it has no independent existence, this one who the doubt applies to. It's just a figment of imagination. So it's so very, in my view, it was very good news. As I say, it's a completely even playing field. There's nothing that there's no condition. So there's nothing that you don't, if you have the doubt says, oh, but I'm not there yet. I don't understand. I'm not smart enough. I'm not experienced enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. On and on. Just see all of those. They're equal, absolutely equal. All of them are just appearing and disappearing, conjuring, each one conjuring and reinforcing this notion of this one who they belong to. But that one can't be found. Only freedom. That silence, stillness, awareness, whatever we want to call it, we can also call it freedom, because it's unconditional. That's true freedom. See, that's the thing about this. That's why it's such good news, is it's not freedom from something. It's not freedom that comes and goes. It's not freedom that is dependent upon anything. It's freedom in which everything comes and goes. It's freedom that's untouched and untouchable, so that whatever the apparent conditions, this freedom remains untouched. And then just see the doubt that comes. Yeah, but how does that help me? That doubt, how does that help me? The me. See, that me is conjured by the doubt itself. Prior to the arising of that doubt, there's just freedom. Even as that doubt arises, still freedom. Freedom untouched. The doubt comes and goes. And as the doubt goes, still freedom. So you can just notice this tendency of giving so much importance to the doubts. And the doubts are, they're all doubts. They're all doubts, really, fundamentally, every single one. It all has to do with, but how am I going to be okay? How am I going to survive? How am I going to get what I need? How am I going to get what I want? All of these doubts, our habit is to just fixate on the doubts like this long string, and there's this, every one of them is predicated upon this me that's built into the doubt. Because there's this long string of them, gives this illusion that the me is constant, but it's obviously not. It's like you're in the dark and you've got a small light source, like a little firebrand, or had a little LED or something. You can move it quickly and it appears that there's a line or a circle, but there is no line or circle. It's just a figment of the imagination. And in the same way, if you have this succession of these doubts, and each doubt contains the same predicate of the me, then it gives this illusion that me is this continuity. But we can recognize directly that it's just an illusion, that me is not found here in this space in which all of those doubts come and go. The me comes and goes. So the truth is, none of those doubts apply to what I am. And it's just the habit of constantly entertaining them that gives this false sense that I must continue to entertain them because my existence is at stake. You see, that one whose existence is theoretically at stake, that one's constantly coming and going, appearing and disappearing. It has no existence, has no independent existence, has no sustained existence. It's already completely transient, which again is good news. It means what? It never exists. It's never here long enough for us to say that there's something there. It's just a figment of imagination. So that's the freedom that is what you truly long for. And you long for it because it is who you are. And all that's needed is just give the rest of it a rest. And I talk about this in a lot of other ways. You might say assuming a posture of freedom or a posture of openness. So it's just to see all of these come and go, and there is this, we call it agency, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. There's the appearance of agency that we can either grasp at and try to fixate on the succession of doubts and the me that they seem to all pertain to, or we can just take it easy and let them come and go. And in that, there's this direct recognition they're always coming and going in the whatever you want to call it that I am. So thank you as always for joining me, and we'll end this portion now. And for those who are here live, we can stay on for a Q&A.